Hey, welcome back to the video. So, yesterday, one of my colleagues, a DevOps guy, sparked a conversation that should each microservice be deployed as a different repository and why, right? So, I took it upon myself to look deeper into it and find out why should we do that and what are the benefits for it, right? Okay. So before doing that, we should know or refresh our memory on what microservice provides us. Okay, so microservice is basically a design system which encourages us to create different small, isolated, independent modules of a big project, right? So these small projects are each called a microservice, and since they are isolated, independent, they enable us to basically deploy them separately. And since they are independent, a failure of any one of them does not break down the whole code base, if that makes sense. Okay. Now, the next thing is, what are the benefits of using a microservice? Correct. So as I said, first, there's the larger code base is broken down into small components. Since it is a larger code base broken down in small components, it makes the code more manageable. It makes the code more organized. It increases readability of the program since you don't really have to go through the whole code base now. You can narrow yourself down to one particular service, right? So that's the benefit that comes with microservice. Especially for large size project, it is great to opt for microservice as it makes everything manageable. Right. So that's the first point. Second, it increases availability. So let me tell you how. Okay. So basically, an alternative to microservice, or what I would say, what traditionally was used was monolithic architecture. So monolithic architecture means basically you write different services in one single code base, right? So they are not really different services, but rather they are different classes that are just communicating with each other on top of each other, right? There is no segregation between them, and everything is dependent on each other. Nothing is isolated. So if one of the thing in your stack goes down, the whole stack stops working, right? So that is a single point of failure, which should not be there, right? So this single point of failure decreases availability. Whereas if you opt for a microservices architecture, all different services are present and they are all isolated, all independent, all are called differently. So if one of them goes down, it does not mean the rest of them have to, right? The rest will still keep working, and the only one that has been faulty, that has been malicious, will be the one infected, right? So this is the second benefit of microservices. The third one is that it comes with flexibility. Okay. So let me tell you what I mean by flexibility. So microservices is a kind of plug and play architecture, right? So plug and play architecture means each new service can be easily added to the code base, and any existing service can be easily detached from the existing code base. Now, this is very important when you are working on a project that goes under continuous improvement and comes with new features and new things to figure out, right? So that is basically the benefit of microservices architecture. Okay. There are a few more like vertical scalability and others, but yeah, I think you get an idea, right? Now let's go to our main question. Should you have a different repository for each microservice? The answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. So you should have a different repo for, and when I say repo, it's a Git repo. Of course, you can use GitLab, GitHub, whatever you like. So, but you should have a different repo because first and most important, each service is an isolated, independent piece of code, right? So that means it is capable of running on its own, correct? So if you put each service in a different repository, then your DevOps engineer can easily set up different code deployment pipelines or CI/CD for that particular service, correct? For a DevOps engineer, it is way easier to create a code pipeline for a code base with one service rather than a larger code base with a lot of services where you want to have an ability to start a specific service, correct? Okay. So that is the first benefit. So each service will have its own CI/CD code deploy pipeline, and that makes sure that everything runs smoothly. Okay, and the code deployment is set up quicker and in more understandable way. Second benefit is if you have 50 services, right? And out of these 50 services, we don't want every engineer to access all of them, right? So each service will have a different team, or a set of services will be worked on by a set of people. Then the other set will be worked on by a different team. So that is usually how it works in bigger or larger organizations. Okay. So if you have different repositories, you can manage access. So a person who is responsible for service A would only run operations, run push, pull, commit, and all other operations only on service that he has access to. So that introduces a level of abstraction to your code base, some privacy as well, and security to the whole infrastructure. Then the third benefit of using different repos is finally the whole soul of microservices is to isolate all different modules that are not dependent on each other, right? So to truly make it isolated, it would make sense to create different repos, right? And one final benefit is that, as I told you, you have a big code base and it has a lot of services. If you have different repos, the person responsible for working on them does not really have to uh, clone the whole code base or understand the whole code base, but he can just pinpoint and find out what exactly he or she needs, right? So these were the benefits of why you should use different repos for your microservice or your next microservices project. Alternatively, you can still opt for having one single larger code base if you have less number of services and if you are sure that the size of the code base will not increase in the coming future, right? So for smaller projects, I would say different repos are a bit of an overkill or an over engineering, since it will waste more of your time, even though you don't need this level of organization or management. So yeah, if you have a smaller project that you're sure would not grow in larger size in the future, you can opt for the traditional route, having one particular repo for each for code base, right? For a project. So yep, that that's all, folks. Thank you for joining today. Make sure to subscribe, like, if you can comment, that would be great. Have you have any questions, let me know. And adios.